The Didact is the only living Forerunner still alive in the Halo universe. Well, not strictly true. Technically he's been composed and is considered contained. But in just a few weeks we're going to find out more about the Didact and whether or not he is in fact still, in the conventional sense, living. And if his rampancy, his logic plague of sorts, has been cured by his contact with the domain since his composition. If he isn't healed, we've just got a very angry adversary waiting for us. But if he has been healed, it could mean that humanity are on the cusp of learning more about the Forerunners than we ever have, and becoming, finally, the reclaimers of the Forerunner legacy. But we don't necessarily have to pin all of our hopes on the Didact as being the only living Forerunner left. There may be yet another, and that is the subject of today's video. Hey everyone, welcome back to Solution 00, and today let's dive deep into some Forerunner lore ahead of the release of Halo Epitaph.
That looks creepy.
One of the primary pillars and cornerstones of the Halo universe are the Forerunners and their legacy. The mystery that surrounds the race that filled the galaxy with immense megastructures and seemingly dominated the galaxy just over 100,000 years ago is still to this day one of the most interesting, intriguing, and engaging plot points of the Halo universe that continues to drive the narrative from game to game, year on year. And whilst many mysteries surrounding the Forerunners have been gradually revealed to us over the years, we don't by a long shot have an exhaustive list and chronicling of the Forerunners, their culture, their histories, and their achievements. They are an enigmatic species that have had an intimate relationship with humanity for millions of years before even our own archaeological evidence here on Earth suggests that we were around. And you could even go so far as to suggest that due to the Forerunners' involvement with humanity as a species in our past and their forced devolution of our species, they have actually played a hand in our being here. Even aside from this, it wouldn't be overstating it to say that humanity is only even in existence because of the actions of the Forerunners, and our somewhat metaphysical standing as the reclaimers of the Forerunner Empire. We are, in an ideological way, the children of Forerunners, and humanity's progress into the 26th and 27th centuries and well into the future of the Halo franchise is dependent upon humanity fully understanding our place, our role as reclaimers, and a more comprehensive understanding of the Forerunners' legacy. This can only be achieved in a few very limited ways. One is to have intellects powerful enough and well versed enough to fully understand the Forerunners and do the research on humanity's behalf. UNSC smart AIs and individuals like Dr. Catherine Halsey would be invaluable in this department.
Yeah.
Or to have the very histories and culture of the Forerunners be told to us by somebody who was there. And therein lies the issue. The Forerunners are extinct. There is only one singular individual whom, as far as we can tell, is still alive in the Halo universe who was there when the Forerunners were at their peak. And that individual is the Didact. All other entities we have ever encountered have been essences, consciousness imprints on systems that are but an imitation of life and hold only very limited data on the Forerunners' histories. And the only other individuals that we could call upon to learn more about the Forerunners are that of the Monitors, particularly the ones that were composed from beings that were living at that time to be turned into Monitors, but even that has its pitfalls. The only individual that we know of who was actually a living being at that time was 343 Guilty Spark, who was the ancient human known as Chuckus. And while he is still around in the Halo universe, he is within a Forerunner Armiger platform, currently residing within the Librarian shield world of Bastion, at a currently unknown and undisclosed location and ultimately beyond our reach. We are but a few weeks away from the release of the next Halo novel, Halo Epitaph, which goes into details on the Didact's journey since his composition at the hands of the Master Chief. and there is at least a slim possibility that we will learn more about the Forerunner's legacy through this novel, but we have no other individuals to call upon. Or do we? The Didact is currently contained in an undisclosed location, likely in contact with the domain in some description. The librarian has only really left imprints of herself across the galaxy. Spark is out of our reach, and the other monitors have compartmentalization protocols in play to limit how much they know of the Forerunner Ecumene. But it's when we take a closer look at the Didact and the librarian that a small piece of lore emerges that nods to an entity who was alive at the peak of the Forerunner Ecumene, and one whom humanity have been in contact with fairly regularly. There is another Forerunner that we could, in theory, get access to and learn the secrets of the Forerunner Ecumene. Over 100,000 years ago, during the Human-Forerunner War, the Didact visited his immense military strength upon the ancient humans. His wrath was tempered, however, by his wife, the librarian, being a life worker rather than a warrior servant. Despite their ideological differences and marrying outside of their own rate, which was unusual for the Forerunners, the Didact and the librarian had a respect for one another's opinions, and this kept them both much more measured. But before their marriage, before their children, before their courting, the Didact had a lover, a Forerunner Promethean of the warrior servant rate, named Endurance of Will. Having received her first full mutation imprint from the oldest and most experienced warrior servant of the age, Bitterness of the Vanquished, Endurance was a masterful strategist, often clashing with the Didact himself regarding battle strategy. Having been raised and serving the warrior servants with the rigid principles of honor and discipline, Endurance became one of the Didact's top lieutenants during the close of the Human-Forerunner War and throughout the entirety of the Forerunner Flood War. So she was a remarkable Forerunner, but how does this tie in to being an individual that we could perhaps call upon in the modern era to aid us in learning the secrets of the Forerunner legacy? Well, in the closing days of the Forerunner Flood War, Endurance was called to Requiem, the Didact shield world, and the Didact revealed his plans to use the Composer to convert all of his fellow Prometheans into the Promethean Night war machines. Endurance, knowing the Didact more intimately than most, could recognize the stench of insanity. The Didact had in recent weeks been in direct contact with the Gravemind and had suffered at the hands of its torture and contracted a biological version of the Logic Plague. Endurance, nevertheless, having lived her entire life by the rigid principles of honor and discipline, followed her commander. She was spared composition, but watched every single Promethean brother and sister be converted into Promethean Night constructs.
Jeez.
Following this, the Didact composed the surviving humans on Omega Halo and turned them into Prometheans as well. This drew the attention of the librarian, and she pursued her husband back to Requiem to confront him for his crimes. Upon the librarian's arrival, however, Endurance confronted the Didact's wife, the librarian, having held resentment for all these years for the fact that the librarian became the Didact's wife instead of her, and still bound by honor, discipline, and loyalty to her commander. And yet, in spite of this, Endurance knew that the Didact had gone too far. She knew that the Didact was insane and required an extensive period of psychological healing that could only be achieved if he was sealed within a cryptum in direct contact with the domain for as long as is necessary. Endurance then helped the librarian in surprising and subduing the Didact. After the librarian rendered the Didact unconscious and stored him within the cryptum, Endurance made the choice to compose herself, to turn herself into a Promethean Knight, and remain as a guardian through the ages for the Didact. Following her composition, the librarian created an essence of herself within Requiem that then took control of all remaining Prometheans on Requiem, including Endurance. And there she would stay, quietly guarding the Didact, her lost love, for nearly 100,000 years. And after nearly 100,000 years of quiet guardianship, Requiem was attacked by Julian Dharma's forces and humanity. Endurance of Will, alongside her Promethean brothers and sisters, fought back Jul's forces to prevent them from getting to the Didact, but was unable to prevent the Master Chief from getting to the Didact. And upon his revival, he took control of the Prometheans once more.
Oh, no.
And just what happened to Endurance following this is relatively unknown until February of 2558, when the UNSC Infinity returned to Requiem, and Spartan 4 fire teams performed operations on Requiem's surface.
Yeah.
And it was during these operations that Fireteam Crimson recovered the durance, the damaged essence or the encephalon of Endurance of Will. Her composed mind was brought aboard the UNSC Infinity and was later released, examined and investigated by Dr. Catherine Halsey. Utterly unbeknownst to all humans who were present when the encephalon was revealed, Endurance of Will, the ancient Forerunner warrior servant, resided within, quietly waiting. In October of the same year, her essence was implanted into the Warzone simulations on the UNSC Infinity, and Endurance's performance during this simulated combat is very closely monitored by the Office of Naval Intelligence.
Wow.
For what reason is utterly unknown, but considering what we know of Endurance of Will, it likely has something to do with unlocking the secrets of the Forerunner legacy. It remains to be seen if Endurance chooses to help humanity or not, but I get the distinct impression that in just a few weeks, we may know more as to whether or not the Didact chooses to aid humanity, and thus, if Endurance, ever loyal, will follow her commander.
Wow. That was amazing. Wow. It makes sense with the Halo 4 fire team Osiris, like that whole portion of Halo 4. It made sense now because when that Forerunner mind basically was like opened up and you saw pictures of all of this, and if I can remember correctly, that is how they saw that Forerunners were like ancient humans. Or it could be that Chief told them. I forget. It's been a while since I've seen that. But it makes sense. I really want to see what happened in that book now. I'm not up to that. I'm not anywhere near close to that book. So I might need to watch a video or something because I need to find out what happened. Because this was amazing. I did not know that the Didact had her. So that is really interesting. And I did not know the whole story. I didn't know that I feel like I think I just forgot that it was the librarian who locked him away. If so, though, that would stand a reason why the Didact was so mad at her in Halo 4. It's been a while since I've played the games. So, but oh my gosh, this was amazing. I need to find out what happened. I need to find a video or something where people are like explaining it completely. Because I need to know what happened.